And we are live. It is showtime. It is Friday. It is 12 noon. And guess what? It is the Friday FARcast. I'm Robert Phoenix, and we do this every week at 12 noon Central Standard Time. And we've been doing it for a while. Like, I go all the way back to the Blog Talk radio days with doing the Friday FARcast. And I think it's fitting that today's show is I lightly titled this sort of the new wave of divination and discourse because our guests today kind of represent a new emerging model in terms of how we share information and communicate with one another. We're going to have Barry and Todd on our show, and they come out of the Discord world. And so they've been running a Discord channel and kind of, plunging into a lot of different ideas and having a lot of interactivity with people in the Discord space. And I think they're starting to move into YouTube and have their own YouTube channel as well. So it's really fascinating to see new voices, new faces, new ideas start to come online. And this has always been a very Aquarian medium, but um, it's expanding, right? There's different ways of kind of sharing this space, and for me, it's always been a more conventional kind of one-on-one interview space, which I love to do. I love interviewing people, and there are other channels out there where you'll get 5, 6 people. They'll all be sort of communicating not simultaneously, but trying to have a conversation, and sometimes you'll see people drop out and come back, and so there's a lot of different models with how we're sharing information now. But I mean, dramatically we are connecting with a really I would like to think it's profound, but it's clearly deep and wide. We are connecting with a very deep and wide channel of sharing information in ways that we've never done before. And I would say that where we are right now with these communication tools, whether it's YouTube or Discord or any of the other video channels or even TikTok, right? It's as revolutionary as the printing press, if not more. Right. The biggest jump from the printing press was radio. It was huge, right? Because now all of a sudden people were simultaneously hearing something at the same time, like a president's speech or fireside chat, which was quite big during the day. And then you had television, which connected image and sound together, a very powerful medium, right? And the leap from the Gutenberg Bible and the printing press to television is quantum. And I would posit that the leap from television to where we are now is equally as quantum. And it has to do with the interactivity and also because of the medium itself, the subject matter is going to be more Aquarian. I mean, this is Marshall McLuhan, once said the medium is the message, right? So if we are playing around and experimenting with an Aquarian medium, and of course, the messaging will be Aquarian for better or worse, lighter or dark. We've talked about quote unquote light Aquarius and dark Aquarius, which I started talking about in the 2000s and looking at the dark Aquarian age, which of course they have all planned up and ready for us in the form of social credit scores and 24/7 surveillance, the Internet of Things, right? But today we might cover some of those topics, but we're gonna try to expand our view outward and have it so this is experimental, experiential, and exploratory. Before I do that and bring our guests on, I never say this, but please hit the like button. And if you don't subscribe to this channel, I think it'd be a good thing because there's a lot that goes on here. Tuesday through Thursday, I do the Astro Weather at 8 a.m. Central Time. Friday, I have the Friday FARcast at 12 noon. And on Sunday night, I have Sunday Night Astro Live. So you'll get your bang for your buck here over on the 11th house. And the other thing that I always talk about is the sponsor of the show, which is True Hemp Science. And I just got to say, again, unequivocally, it is by far the best hemp product that I have experienced, and I've tried a few. Let me bring up the share here for little True Hemp Science. Let me bring up their website is very it's very very relaxing, atmospheric, ambient, and you can get all kinds of really interesting hemp products. They've got oils, they've got edibles, water soluble. They've got CBD for your pets. If your pet is stressed out, has some inflammation, check out Pet Sounds. If you type in 15MINS, that's 15MINS, when you check out, after you spend $100 or more, you're going to get some free product. And my good friend Chris at True Hemp Science will make it worth your while. $150 or more gives you free shipping. And there's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. The best part is that if you want to make an appointment and speak to a CBD expert, that would be Chris, you can do that right there. You just schedule a call, and he'll call you back, and he'll help you out with your CBD needs, really personalize it. Okay. So Todd is here. Looks like Barry has joined us. So let's add everybody to the stream. Here we go.
Hey, good. Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can. Let me unmute Todd. So
Okay.
Todd, there you
Hello.
go. Hey, welcome back. Todd and I were chatting a little bit before you guys jumped on. And so Barry, this is our official kind of meet and greet. How are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. Appreciate you having me on. Pretty excited about just exploring some new ways to maybe look at astrology and just really excited. Appreciate you having me. Todd, how you doing?
Good, man. Been a minute.
Yeah,
So-
sure has.
So let's find out a little bit about both of you and your background and some of the things that you're interested in. I was talking with Todd earlier, and I got the sense he's a bit of an artist, and he does drawing and illustrations. What else you got going on there, Todd? Who are you? Where do you come from? What are you all about?
Yeah, sure. I'm Todd. I'm an art teacher. I also do art. I've been doing video animation, all that stuff for years and years and years. And these days, I'm mostly an art teacher because that's pays the bills, and I really enjoy it. I guess I'm in Ohio. We've been doing we have our show Delicious Divination, and we've been doing that for a couple of years now. We're not like super religious on the schedule, but we do what we can and dive deep on a lot of stuff. We like you said, Discord. We come from the Discord group. Barry and I met. I think it was like Andreas Exertis channel, like back in like 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh man, this dude's literally talking about the same stuff I am. And so like I hit up Barry, we hit it off. We've gone camping together and stuff like that. And psychedelic stuff.
So you guys went from online to offline. That's cool, right?
Yeah.
I've actually met several of our community in our Discord group. One dude, he's in Pennsylvania. I met him. Great guy. So yeah, definitely. I encourage that. Really, definitely try to find some people in real life you can talk to the stuff, like real stuff about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've always been a big proponent of the offline world, and we have an event that we do here in Texas every year called the Harvest Moon Festival. And this is our 5th year, and it's really great when we all get together and I have speakers and activities. And I've always been, online to offline. I it's like you're completing the circuit. Okay, now you said something that piqued my curiosity. You said psychedelic stuff.
Yeah, that's my primary background with I don't say spirituality or anything, but like getting into deeper topics. Yeah, that's so art first, but then I did a lot of psychedelics. I'm a huge proponent of psychedelics. I study a lot, read a lot of old books, and the correlations. For instance, we talk about Rudolf Steiner a lot on the show, and the stuff he's talking about. Like I personally, I have no issue drawing the lines between psychedelics and spirituality and the stuff that he's actually talking about. And it's big on like astrology and all those things too. It really helps tie it together. Yeah.
Right. So let me get a sense. Todd, how old are you?
I'm 37.
37. Okay, so you would be considered a millennial by demographic. What was it like for you? And I'm assuming you were an art teacher during COVID. Were you an art teacher during COVID?
Not quite. I started. I mean, my first official year was last year, so
Okay, good.
the end of it. Yeah, I worked.
So
in Amazon during COVID.
you didn't have to go through that then.
Right. Yeah.
It was pretty bad. I'm glad I didn't. I did temporarily work at a school, and it was really, really hard. In fact, that's kind of why I quit. It was too much to tell a kindergartner to, muzzle their face when you know that it's not healthy for them, and it was very difficult for me to keep doing that.
Be soul killing, actually.
Yeah, I mean, my heart literally stopped, and I felt that, and it was, it was hard. It's not, you don't need to study science to know that muzzling children is not a good idea.
Right.
And it sets a bad example too as an adult, because I don't have children, but as an adult, I don't want to be running around being like, oh, look at me, I'm scared of something that doesn't even exist. I think that's preposterous, and you're setting a bad example for young people. So yeah.
Right. Well, I want to get back to the psychedelic part, but Barry, you are a parent, right? I read that in your bio.
Oh, that's correct. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's one of probably the top of my Earth resume here is being a parent, trying to be the best parent I can. I feel like that's the way we can kind of emulate that creation aspect, kind of get a perspective from a creator's point of view of what it's like to, I don't know, bring a creation into the world and foster it, nurture it, and whatnot. So it's difficult, for the parents out there these times that we're in. I mean, we're just seeing such a shift. I was born '83, so I'm on the last of the,
X. You're last of Gen X, right?
Right. Yep. So I mean, I grew up, riding my bike 20 miles into town. Very analog, running through the woods. I mean,
right.
I mean, about late '80s, that first, that Game Boy, the first real handheld
changes everything. Changes everything.
Yep. It was like crack for the children, and it was controlled in the beginning. Cartoons were like a Saturday morning thing, something like that. You didn't have just saturation that we do now. So trying to be a parent in this world, trying to be the creator's eyes and find ways through all this, trying to make it work, which the online to offline thing, I feel like we can use the tools to beautify stuff. It is a blessing to be able to talk with people across this whole system. And if you have an opportunity to actually physically hug that person, go spend some time with them, just to deepen that relationship, because we know that the smell, I mean, there's just so much to an experience, down to the smell of somebody. I know that sounds pretty weird, but I mean
no, I do. I was with my son the other day, and trust me, I came very close in contact with the smell experience.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Dude, when was the last time you took a shower?
And right.
Yeah,
no, it's been a thing. Like, look at our kind of post-COVID world right now. I feel like there's a large part of the population that are experiencing changes in smell and taste, and I think it's outside of. I think the whole narrative was used as a mask for some kind of cosmic event that we are going through. To actually give it a name and to say what might be causing it is very difficult. But I do know that the physical manifestations that we go through here, what we're subjected to, I feel like these things, we know they're coming spiritually, soulfully. However, there's this, elusive attempt to slap a label on it to take credit for something, right? So, if you have the knowledge of the backing of the working of everything, and something's coming, you can easily set up a mask event in front of it. So the smell has been huge in my life. They say that losing your smell is one of the first signs of death. I don't really believe anything can necessarily die or be destroyed. It's kind of that, your body is just more extended essentially when you get down to the destructive phase. But I'll give you a quick bio. So I'm 40, last of Generation X. Those were tough years right there in the early 80s for people, for the world. I think we were in a slight depression. It was right before the prime rate was about to go crazy in the 80s, up to 20%. I think they attacked that spot heavily. Saturn was exalting around Libra. So that's a huge ritual spot right there. So I came right there in that spot, Saturn exalting. I feel I have Saturn directly on my ascendant at 0 degrees Scorpio, 42 minutes, and my ascendant is 0 degrees Scorpio, 39 minutes. So you're talking 3 minutes, which is directly overhead. To me, the ascendant is, that's your pressure system. So I have Saturn 12 seconds away with Pluto from being directly above my head at the time of birth. So
So you're an intense guy. You're bringing that in. On your first breath. So just to give you some insight, I was in my final year of second to final year of college when you were born. So I graduated in 1984, and so when 84, by the time 84 rolls around, we're looking at the beginning of second term Reagan. And I can assure you that the vibe. And I was thinking about this today, and I'd love for you guys to comment on this, because maybe you've thought about it. But I was thinking, and I've thought about this before, but whenever there's a president that is elected on a 0 year, there's major change that takes place, right? Because you get the 0 year, the start of a new decade, and then in most cases you'll get the start of a new presidency along with that. So if you look at 80, it's the beginning
2000, 2020.
2000, you have Bush and Y2K and 9/11. 2020.
What's there? Jupiter Saturn conjunctions are right there too.
Yeah, that's right. Jupiter Saturn conjunctions are at that point. You had 1960 with Kennedy, right? And then you have Jupiter Saturn moving into Capricorn a little later after that.
You got World War II going back the next couple 20 sets. You got our COVID, our 9/11. They're all following those huge.
So it's all those 0 years when a new president is elected, and it sets a tone for the decade. And Nixon was elected in 72, so for a second term, so you really can't count Nixon. But there is growing up in the 70s, I was sort of the first generation of the free range kid, right? Like if you go back to the 50s and to some degree the 60s, you had more stay at home moms. It was more the June Cleaver reality. So I'm sort of the first generation of the free range kids, and you're kind of at the end of that, right?
Yeah.
But I
could working, house to yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it was cool. I don't have an issue with it, for me at least. But there was a definite change. You could feel the change from the 70s to the 80s, and some of it was actually quite good. When I go back and look at the vibe in the 80s, musically it was really wide open. There was a ton of experimentation going on. Recording changes drastically. You get begin to have some digital recording come in the 80s. But for me, and I'd love both your guys' perspective on this. So I'm sure you have kind of kicked this around. And especially when you look at when Saturn moves into Aquarius, which we can talk about. But for me, the 80s had a 60s vibe. Like there was, you look at replacing LSD with
cocaine.
With ecstasy.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. When you get into like the late '80s and you go into like Manchester in England and the whole electronic scene
Mhm.
and house music and the hacienda, right? That's a whole kind of '60s vibe
Okay, it is. Yeah.
that starts to take root, and then you have sort of this weird like hope and optimism with things like Live Aid and Farm Aid, and you have
Mhm.
the harmonic convergence with Jose Arguelles.
Yeah.
And it felt like the '80s were in some ways kind of a hijacked era, right? Like
Mhm.
there was something really ripe during the '80s that was there. You
Mhm.
even have an Aquarian president
Mhm.
with Reagan for a while.
Right.
I think Reagan was replaced, by the way, but that's just my own thoughts around the whole thing.
Mhm.
So the '80s are, it almost feels like there's this weird time jump with the '80s coinciding with the assassination of Reagan, which happens in March of
Yeah.
1980, like right after he's elected. A lot of people don't understand how fast that happened.
Right. That's
And
huge for the harmonic convergence stuff. I think what, like 88, 89, we were getting into this really epic spot right there. This because I think
you
it
got
was
the fall of the wall happening, right?
yeah, follow wall right there. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's when the Game Boy thing came out. They gave us the crack. Yeah. That was you
So
know, that it felt
yeah,
like the movies were better. The passion was there, right? You had excitement for Earth adventures inside of you. Everything was exciting and new, and you know, I feel like we're in a world now pretty opposite of that. We're pretty beat down. I mean, there are exciting things going on for sure, but at the same time, we've got the weight of the world, you know, like on our shoulders at this point. It feels like we have a duty. We have decisions that need to be made. We have, you know, just final straws that are stacking up, and you know, it's establishing a line. Like, where is your line? What is it going to take to get you to move to, you know, where are you crossed at?
right,
I feel like that's what we're in now. We're being pushed against a wall, and we're seeing how much pressure we can take.
right,
um
right, right. It's like you know, the line, this ain't no party, this ain't no
no,
disco, this ain't no
this
fooling
is
around,
serious.
right?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I do also feel that we can get so sucked into and bound up in that kind of,
Yeah,
you know,
easily.
edge and drama that we also lose sight of the wonder and
Mhm.
novelty and joy
The
that
mystery. Yeah.
as humans is part of our birthright, right?
Right.
And so we're doing this really interesting dance with, you know, you being a parent and you know, looking at this. Do you have more than one child or just
Yeah,
one?
I have two biological, and then, you know, there's a Brady Bunch situation too. So, you know,
Right.
step parenting is probably even harder than parenting. It's like the pinnacle of being a parent, you know, and you strive as a human to extend a child as a child as a child as a child, and you know, your love, you know, these are all children, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just a there's so much to learn here. You know, like, you can think you're the most badass spirit and you got it all figured out. And hey, why don't you go check out Earth for a little bit?
Yeah. Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
No.
place
That,
is a
yeah.
school, man.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
definitely, definitely. Well, let's bring Todd back into the conversation here,
absolutely.
and I wanted to circle back to the psychedelic part because we were talking about things like novelty and joy and creativity and imagination,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
maybe this is a good kind of icebreaker here on the psychedelic side. So, Todd, um, what's your entheogens of choice? Let's just get it right out there.
Yeah, there you go.
Dimethyltryptamine.
Nice.
Yeah.
DMT, okay, all right. What else? What about salvia? Do you explore with salvia at all?
No, I've not tried it. No, I don't. Uh, I don't like to get too crazy in terms of you know, trying to source the things and get the things. It's difficult enough as it is. I'll run down a little bit. First of all, I guess the substance of choice or plant of choice would be cannabis. I think
Mhm.
cannabis is amazing. I think it's like the best way to sort of alleviate a lot of things, and it's, you know, you can
Yeah.
use it regularly without too much difficulty.
Mhm.
LSD, I think, is amazing. I think it's really, really good. I think you need to be careful with it because high dose, and I would say if you don't have a proper mental state or a proper environment, it's a little risky, and it lasts a very long time. So it's a hard work. In which case, I would recommend, if you're a little nervous, I would recommend microdosing it. It's great for work. Literally, like if you have a lot to do, I recommend it for that. Psilocybin's awesome. Best in high doses, fun for light doses, I would say, but you can get a lot of knowledge from the mushroom world. They're pretty friendly with newcomers. And DMT is legitly the best. I don't know. It's just awesome. It's pretty hard to talk about, I guess you could say, because it exceeds words usually. But it's, in my opinion, exactly what stuff like Steiner's talking about, where accessing lower Devacon, and I like to say it just gets rid of it's like Drano for your bullshit. It's awesome. It's incredible. I mean, I think a lot of the last 3 years is the psychedelics are a huge factor. I don't think people realize, because in 2018 and 2019, a lot of states started legalizing cannabis, and a lot of them started decriminalizing psilocybin. And you had Joe Rogan talking about DMT, which he doesn't do anymore. I'm sure he's not allowed to. And then all of a sudden, all this stuff's going on, and now you got the fentanyl thing, which I think is also, an anti-measure to keep substances down. These things are like very useful tools.
Well,
keep fear around it. Yeah.
Fentanyl is, it's genocidal.
Yes.
I mean, fentanyl is genocidal.
But you get hooked on opioids, right, which are legally prescribed, and then you can't afford that stuff after a while, or you want to get it cheaper, right? And
well, they've done a lot of bait and switch stuff with the opioids. Are you guys familiar with Jolly West? You ever get into his work at all?
No.
He was a very early MK Ultra Phoenix Project guy, and he ran the LSD program at UCLA way back in the day. Charles Diederich, who started Synanon, went through that program. And have you guys ever gotten into Diederich and Synanon at all?
No.
That's a rabbit hole.
I've heard of it, but
that's a rabbit hole you should get into. It's very interesting.
Nice.
But Jolly West ran all that stuff. He was an asset. And one of the things that he was very interested in is getting the public hooked on drugs, not just things like LSD, but things like I don't know, OxyContin, right? Although he wasn't around with OxyContin, but his whole part of his program was to create dependencies and then remove the substance through the dependency. And this is exactly what you're talking about with fentanyl because of the OxyContin problem. Yeah. Now all of a sudden these doctors are like, okay, well, you're only going to get this for a little bit, or you're not going to get it at all because I don't want to get sued. And then where do people go to manage pain? They go to the fentanyl option, right? Yeah. So this is exactly what you're talking, and that's all controlled and by design.
Oh yeah,
all controlled and by design.
Well, they even tell you that one of the side effects is like suicidal tendencies, and I've lost several family members to suicide because of these substances, and it's just like, why? How disgusting. Like I mean, appalling, really.
Well, I don't know if you guys followed the whole Madonna thing, but apparently they had to revive her with Narcan.
Yeah.
So
she's alive.
I don't know. She
that's the same way as Michael Jackson, right? Wasn't the Michael Jackson situation something to do with opiates? Wasn't there something involved there?
I have a whole different theory about Michael Jackson.
Right. I know, it's so hard to. I mean, really, I gotcha.
So do you guys know about Dave?
Yeah.
I think Michael Jackson is Dave.
Yeah.
Sounds exactly like him.
Exactly like him. So the word was that when they had that fire on the set of the Pepsi commercial, that he was severely burned. And then they had to come up with basically a Michael replacement.
Okay.
Because the Jacksons were so popular.
It's a lot of money lost.
It was a cash machine, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So I tend to think that Michael is Dave. That's just
Yeah.
my own personal opinion.
Yeah. That's.
I'm down for it. I mean, that'd be great.
Right.
What about have either of you guys tried Ibogaine?
Ibogaine.
I remember hearing about it, but no, I've never tried it. I
No, what is Ibogaine? What is
So Ibogaine is
like lidocaine?
No, it's a chemical synthesis of something called the Iboga plant.
Okay.
And it only grows in one area of the world. It's in Central Africa. So it's you can find it in places like the Congo.
Okay.
And it is the only, believe it or not, the only psychedelic plant that grows in Africa. Like,
wow,
psilocybin is not. You can't find psilocybin in Africa.
right.
So you have,
Really?
yeah. I mean, I guess you know,
They have
cot or
ayahuasca,
whatever.
I think.
No.
That's
South America.
South
Okay.
America.
So is cannabis our psychoactive plant? Is that America?
Yeah, well, it is America, and I think you can find some of that in Africa. What are they? I think it's called
tobacco.
It's called khat, KHAT. I think
Okay.
you can find khat in Africa, which is, you can get addicted to khat.
Okay.
But Iboga is very interesting,
Huh.
and so they have a number of different tribes in the Congo, and the one tribe that seems to be associated the most with it is called the Bwiti, BWITI,
Nice.
and the Bwiti use it for rite of passage. So when you're a young man or a young woman, and or both, when you're going into marriage, you do the Iboga, and so essentially you can actually, let me see if I can do a kind of an image of the Iboga ritual. It's really interesting how
that's pretty cool that it only grows one place in the whole system. That's if you look at it like a map of the heavens too, it's like you've got this one place connected right here. It's like some special gift coming in. I mean,
yeah.
So usually what happens is that for men, they have this thing where there are women who will basically straddle like a small sort of body of water. It could be like it doesn't have to be like a river, but one part of the rituals when you're on the plant, you are basically, you swim through their legs, right?
Cool.
So like you're reborn.
Leapfrog.
And so it's not just the plant, but it's the spirit behind the plant. So the spirit itself is called Iboga. And the whole idea is that when you reach a certain age, you step outside of time space. And Iboga gives you your purpose inside the tribe, right? Like that's why it's a rite of passage. Like you literally sort of get your spiritual blueprint and walking papers. Like this is what you're, supposed to do. And couples will do it, before they, get married, so that they will also understand kind of what their spiritual journey and plan is. And it came to prominence back in the 90s when an American psychotherapist by the name of Howard Lotsoff started to use it in heroin and meth clinics in Amsterdam. And what they found was the American version of this, or the Western version of this, is that when people took the synthesis of the plant, which is Ibogaine, they had some very interesting things happen to them. So they were actually able to see a screen of their life, and they would see these trauma events that took place.
Yeah.
And they were actually
they
were actually able to rewrite the script of their trauma. Right. Wow. And then the other part about Ibogaine, which is interesting, and I've actually done it, so I know I can speak firsthand about this.
Yeah.
Is that it gets into a part of your brain and it zaps your craving and addictions.
Nice.
Oh, I need this.
Seriously.
That sounds awesome. Yeah.
So prior to
ask you a
that,
question
yeah,
about
go
it?
ahead. Yeah.
So when well, let me just ask you this. So do you feel a crackling in the center of your head, literally?
No, you don't. Well, I'll tell
Okay,
you what my
interesting.
experience. I'll tell you what my experience was. So, I was at that time. I thought I was a pretty sophisticated psychonaut. Like I'd done a lot of trips. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where I had started to read about it and hear about it. This is around, I think, 1994. And one of my, I used to manage this apartment building in Oakland, which is kind of where it all went down. And one of my tenants was actually able to get a hold of some. And I was like, really? She said, yeah. So I'm like, well, let me try it. Let me do it. Right. I had,
Right.
I'd read some things. I read the Lotsoft material. So I'm like, okay, well, let's go. So you can't have any MAO inhibitors. So you
Yep.
need to fast for about a day. So I did that. And I put this stuff, I just went for it. I put it in something to drink. I drank it. Within 20 minutes, I was probably as far out on as any lysergic acid dithylamide trip I'd ever had.
Wow.
Right. And this is 20 minutes in. And I'm like, oh boy, I'm in for it. Right. And here's the weird part. And by the way, I've had this corroborated by somebody who is a practitioner, quote unquote, counselor with Ibogaine. One of the first,
Pygmy tribes discovered it. Wow.
Yes, yeah. So one of the first things that happened was I had a sensation of being viewed through by what I would call a large number of aliens.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
Like
more
I
than
could,
one.
like more. No, we're talking. It was like
Couldn't count it.
a lot, and they were all,
Yeah.
and they were all looking through me as part of my experience.
Yeah.
And it was unnerving.
Could they control anything, or were they just watching?
They were watching, but it was one of those moments where if I had tripped on it too hard, I could have gone really mad, right? Like if I'd spent a lot of time, like focusing on that part of it.
You can't look at it too much. Kind of, I'm with you there.
So, I did the ancestral thing, right? Like I gotta call in some backup here.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And that's what I did, and it seemed to work, right? But then I went on this journey, and I'll be honest with you, the peak on this lasted hours, like hours, and I will also tell you, it's not necessarily fun. Right?
Yeah.
It's not.
I know that.
Right. It's not like a party. Like you don't. It's like, yeah, hey, let's do Ibogaine again next month. It's like,
no,
it's hard. Right? It's hard work.
It was really. So then, so then I come out of it, and we all have like this sort of permeable membrane around us, right? Like the ectomorphic field, right? Yep. It was all gone. Like I had no ectomorphic, or there was nothing between me and the world.
Nice.
I felt really naked and raw, and I was living in Oakland, which is a bit of a heavy scene, right? So you have to be really, really conscious about what you're doing. I had no urge whatsoever to drink coffee or alcohol afterwards. None.
Nice. Shattered your entire cyclic.
Just zapped
pattern.
It. Just went in there and zapped it.
That's cool.
The other thing it did to me, and this was the part that unnerved me the most, and took me a while to kind of reintegrate. I couldn't talk. Like I could talk, but my ability to form sentences was really difficult.
Wow.
And I remember hanging out with some friends who were, again, really seasoned psychonauts, and they were really excited. They wanted to know what my experience was. I was having a really hard time telling them.
Yeah.
Because I literally had to reconstruct my speech center in some ways. Yeah. So this is something that is not a casual experience. And if you're going to do it, you need to really take about 3 months out of your life.
Wow.
so that you can integrate
So fast before, use, and then process, pretty much. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like for you with all your children, it would be pretty daunting, I think.
Yeah. I can't even take mushrooms in this world right now, man.
You know,
like,
that's really interesting because when my son was born, I had no desire to do any psychedelics.
Yeah.
That's where my head was at.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm on year 3 right now and it's really just been, I don't know if I've put up like a protective ego for the world that we've arrived in right now. I mean, because I work for the federal government, so they were going to fire me for not getting, certain medical procedures done. And I said, you go ahead and fire me, So I pretty much had to adopt this like warrior type stance against the situation to protect, just my personal things I stand for, essentially. And at that point, it's been like under that mode of operating, I don't know if it would be hard to look at myself right now, but I know one thing is for certain, that I would have a flood of just seeing the way things are right now, and I don't know if I want to see that. It's I kind of just want to deal with its image and its earthly adventure. To go into it deeper, it just gives me a place of uncomfort inside. I don't know.
I was the same way.
Yeah.
And this was circa 2006, 7, 9, 2010. And it wasn't like where it is today, but I share the same sentiment that you have.
Yeah.
And it was like, if what I experience is so disruptive, how am I going to be able to like deal with my kids and
right.
And let's say, for instance, you or me have the doors of perception completely cleansed and we see a shitstorm coming right at us. Like, how's that going to help us with our kids in some way?
The thing is like, I know I need it. Like when I'm in these scenarios, I look at it like a once a year type thing for a big healing event. I mean, because that's what this stuff is for me. Like I have tried microdosing it before, and it's actually was very pleasurable. I think I was doing just a half a gram or something like that, and with the microdose thing, and it was it was healthy for me, essentially. But at this point, like larger doses, I feel like I need it, but I don't want to experience it. Like I don't, you know what it is? I bet it's a control thing. Like I want to maintain control. I don't want to give up
That's
control.
how I felt. Aldous Huxley talks about the limiter, right, in the doors of perception. And I'm like, I want to stay in control of the limiter right now. I'm good with that.
It's a great book.
Well, Todd, let's talk about some of your DMT journeys here, and then we can segue maybe some astrology, some Tartaria, some Generation A. We can touch a bunch of stuff. So let's Todd, give us some firsthand accounts of your journeys in the DMT universe.
Yeah, sure. Well, so I asked you about I'll start with the question I asked you about the crackling in your head with for instance LSD and DMT, and I learned about this stuff mostly from Terrence McKenna, but he talks about a crackling, and it's essentially the pineal decalcifying, I think, but you will literally feel it's kind of like it's a cool sensation, and it's like right in the center of your head, which is connecting the hemispheres of your brain, which is very intriguing. But it's like it feels kind of like a crackling plastic bag a little bit. That's kind of, I don't know. It's feels.
Imagine a
good.
Stone breaking up, turning to a liquid. Something becomes permeable, right?
Yeah, I like the lotus metaphor. From the East, right? Like that's a good metaphor. It's kind of a thing blossoming out, and you can feel it in your head. But as far as trips goes, I've had a lot of degrees of trips. I've had, I don't know. I guess I'll talk a little bit about it. Difference. I've had like the totally blast out You see like what feels like infinite time or infinite space. I've had trips where I felt like it was like the entire space, kind of like you were talking about with Ibogaine, where you connected to the world. The one difference I would say is typically on DMT, you may connect with like larger beings that you can actually literally talk to, but it's not the sense of others sharing sense with others or vision
You're the
with
same
others.
being or something.
Yeah, like it's you.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
can sort of get it. Now, mushrooms, almost every time I do mushrooms, I sense exactly that, where you're literally tapping into the psilocybin network, and they're basically granting you those abilities temporarily, and it's really cool. But DMT, it's so awesome. The visions you can see. I like to experiment with it a lot. So I, for instance, would do it outside, which is Terrence McKenna recommends that's the best way to do it too. Like, especially if it's bright and
How long does
comfortable.
it last? Does it depend? I mean, is it like a 15-minute?
Yeah, about 10, 15 minutes. You may spend, 5 minutes kind of coming down. It's very much, as Steiner describes, where, you're sort of coming out of a dream. A lot of people, for instance, the first time they do it, they'll talk about like, they might not remember it, right? And it's literally just like fading from a dream into reality. And, it's probably your astral body is coming back in.
Yeah.
And so, but it's just the things you can see are just beautiful. And I used to try all kinds of stuff. I like to, the last few times I did it, I was doing it with music. I listened to this guy called Klaus Weiss. Klaus, Klause, Weiss, Wiese, and he does sort of this drone music, ambient.
Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah,
yeah, he was like supposedly a Sufi, and so the last trip I did one of his videos, and it's just the album cover that was on the TV, and I do recommend sort of every time I did DMT, I have to like sit and like meditate and breathe. I do recommend getting control of your breath to the best of your ability, because it's very nerve wracking, especially with so much misinformation regarding psychedelic substances and like, oh, am I holy enough to do this? Blah, blah, blah. It's like,
Right.
it should have reverence to a degree for sure. But anyway, this trip was particularly awesome, and this happens a lot. But as I was going through, so it sort of starts in phases. The first phase is usually sort of your vision will start to change, just like psilocybin, and then it's sort of your body sort of melds with what would be the aether world or whatever, probably lower Devachan, and then you'll have things sort of. For instance, I usually do it with my eyes open, and I'll basically see this world, but what it becomes is sort of a optimized, I want to say cartoon, but it's not quite cartoon, but it's very simplified, and it's then it sort of you can either blast off to like no reality, but in this case, the music I was listening to started vibrating within like my very soul, and then the entire room, and then the TV, which was playing the music, basically came alive, and everything started spilling out of the TV. And then I thought, and this happens many times, is I thought, oh shoot, I've just destroyed the world again. And because everything changes and the whole world changes, and it feels I don't know, just like, oh shoot, I really messed up this time. And at the same time, it's incredibly beautiful, but you're like, oh shoot, am I gonna get in trouble for this? It's like, is God gonna come down here and be like, whoa, stop it? And as I'm freaking out, I ended up like standing up because I was kind of freaked out, like, oh shoot, I really did it this time. And my vision was, for instance, like my ceiling's only probably like, I don't know, 8 or 9, 10 feet. I don't know. It's not super high, but like my head was literally on the ceiling, like kind of staring down at my body, and you're sensing the whole thing. And I was kind of freaking out because I thought I destroyed the world again. And I just ended up breathing and like walking around and coming down because it wasn't a super high dosage. But it's always, I always hold it in reverence and try to not force anything, and B, just like just have mad respect for it, because I don't exactly do it for, I mean, I'm doing it to like learn, like I want to understand, like, and why is this illegal, right? Like if giving this to people gets rid of the bullshit and you can start to see reality for what it is, because the come down is like, you come down and you're like, the only reason you're here, or at least one of the main reasons you're here, is like, you know, is just to be like your obligations in life, bills and all that. Like, sure, we need them and they're important, but like they're strictly material, and there's obviously a deeper way to exist in the world. And
let me interrupt you there for a second, because there's another side to this that I want to throw out there. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but during COVID, there were people who were, again, sort of like recognized psychonauts. And I'll bring somebody like Daniel Pinchbeck up. You guys know Daniel Pinchbeck at all?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, Breaking Open the Head, 2012. Like, so here's somebody who, you know, he's done it all, right? Ibogaine, DMT, ayahuasca, you name it. And then after all of that sort of deep psychedelic journey and processing, he comes out the other side and he just checks all of these boxes, like the next thing, right? And you know, COVID, the mask, you
right, 6 feet,
whatever, man, right? Like, and there were so many people in the alternative community who were, you know, journeyers, psychedelic people, and they have been for a while. And they, and what I've seen is that it really hasn't changed their political perspective very much at all. And I've always found that to be fascinating.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, you just had your head opened, and you've experienced this oneness, and now you're coming back and you're telling us all that we have to adhere to global warming, wear a mask, and get vaccinated. Like, what are your thoughts on stuff like that? Because there are people that are like that, and I could make it a guess or an assumption about why
either
that
they
is.
didn't do it, or
I would say so. Psychedelics aren't. You go into psychedelics with your information, so those people just don't have the right information.
That's what I think.
And so it doesn't matter. Like the mushrooms aren't going to tell you about global warming. They don't give a shit about global warming. That doesn't exist to them, as it probably doesn't exist to anyone else. You know, so it's just your pool of information. That's like I say, if you, for instance, give DMT or any psychedelic substance to somebody who, you know, that's their pool of information, like it's not going to like change that pool of information necessarily. It could, I guess, you know, you could definitely get downloads, but
well, going back to Charles Diederich in Jolly West, it clearly changed Charles Diederich, who at that time was a raging alcoholic, and he has this amazing experience. Then he decides that he wants to dedicate his life to helping heroin addicts, because that's where Synanon, the group that he started, that's where it started. It was because back in the day, if you were a heroin addict, you were screwed. Like, you couldn't, there wasn't any help for you, right? So he did have a major shift in his consciousness, right? We know this happens. But for me, the talking points on the political side of things seem to be kind of, I don't know, hermetically sealed or inert, and I'm always kind of blown away, right? By this phenomena. Have you guys noticed that? I mean, or am I the only person? Yeah.
No, I think money has a big part of it too. You know, I mean, these people could say one thing, but you know, have different intent inside. They could just be saying the things, you know, because I feel like the people that are stars that are allowed on the media they're allowed to be there by, you know, some greater power. And if they don't tote the line and, you know, the agenda of the media gets disrupted, they're going to pull that support system. So,
Yeah.
You know, if you want to be a part of that circus, you've got to, if you want to be in that club, you know, it's there's
to play.
certain things. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and that's the funny money system.
Yeah.
You know, we're on that real moony system, you know, the moon energy, that soma, you know,
Right.
that's our real physical needs. So I mean, it's tough. I think there's just a lot of two-facedness. I bet a lot of those stars know that. I bet they didn't put anything in their body, but they presented as they did.
Well, look at somebody like Jack Dorsey.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Jack Dorsey's a heavy tripper. He microdoses.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, Jack, where's your, you know, where's your real freedom here? Right. And Musk
Right.
is the same way. You
Right.
know, these guys are trippers, right?
Yeah, I think most high level people are on for
Absolutely,
sure
yeah.
some things, and there's definitely I think especially these days where it's easy to learn chemistry. I mean, easier, right, than like 20 years ago,
Yep.
right? But like, I mean, I'm sure they have chemicals that they don't talk about too.
Right.
So Todd,
that's a big thing.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Todd, I'm interested. Can you give us one thing that you experienced in the DMT state that you were able to bring back to your life and integrate it and have it become meaningful and perhaps make a difference?
Yeah, definitely. I actually made an art book. I published it in 2020. I tried so I've been using Photoshop at the time for almost 20 years, and so I tried to capture the experience of psychedelics as best as I could. And if you read the book, it's obviously mostly art, but it's sort of designed to like demonstrate a trip or help you see what a trip can be like without actually doing it, because I know many people won't try substances at all. And yeah, I mean, as far as real life goes, it's like having reverence. It's like knowing that there's more going on, knowing that there is a spiritual world. Yeah, Barry's got my copy. Yeah, thanks, bro.
So can you where can you get that book?
You can get it on my website, toddcast.shop.
Okay, we'll put the link in the
Thanks,
in the show notes here. We'll make sure people who are
Yeah.
interested. Looks very. I
That's
love the
awesome.
cover. Put that cover back up there again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. I'll send you a copy for sure.
That is a very cool cover.
Highly recommended on psilocybin. I usually recommend. A lot of people have done it with it, so it's amazing on psychedelics. So literally looks like portals and stuff. So
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, let me ask you an astrological question.
Okay.
Because as an astrologer, I look at things like afflictions towards Neptune and sometimes Pluto, and there you go. I don't think everybody should do drugs. That's the other side of this, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, where are you guys with that?
Yeah, I see Neptune as a big connection to that. I see it either. I mean, if I enjoy cannabis, and for me, cannabis connects me to my Neptunian state, my intuitive nature, the environment speaking to me, which is funny because it actually shuts down your frontal cortex, which separates you from your environment.
Right.
So I feel like it separates you from that intellect portion, the two thieves, the two eyes. And, Neptune is either the storm, if you don't listen to your inner voice, and if you don't listen to the wisdom coming in, and, those gut feelings, hey, you probably shouldn't do this, you probably shouldn't put that in your body, then you're going to deal with the storm.
Right.
But if you're able to listen to the Neptunian wisdom within, because this is past things you can see, right? You got Saturn, the last visible entity.
That's
Some
right.
people
Yep.
got 2010, they can see Uranus. I mean, you're out here past what you can physically see. You're into that light right there. So a different information system, something that is not subject to being contained in our sevenfold system right here. So this is part of our environment, our time, essentially. I do like Neptune. I know we have Chronos, Saturn's time, but I like Neptune as Saturn's time, right? So for Saturn sitting there, Saturn's environment would include the Uranus and the Neptune and the Pluto on its outer, more concentric rings. That would be its space, its time. So all the matter Saturn's ringland system, one ring to rule them all. We're all on Saturn's matter system.
Right. And Saturn also looks backwards to the rest of the solar system. So it really is the intermediary between this personal place, which you're talking about, and then the things beyond the personal place.
Right. If people
we're in Saturn and Pisces, and we're in Saturn and Pisces right now as well.
Right.
So now we're bringing Saturn and Neptune together in the discussion.
We are absolutely. Yeah, Neptune's big. I have it sextile in my ascendant hard, 0 degree difference right there on the angle right to Saturn.
So it sextiles your Saturn and your Pluto, right?
Yeah, and it's sitting in Sagittarius 3rd house, which me and Todd share a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Scorpio, I believe.
Oh, cool. So you guys can really
2nd house
expand and go deep with really unusual information. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we share that. We found that in each other's charts. It's pretty neat.
Yeah. So what about you, Todd? Let's get some astrological data on you. What's your sun sign and your rising sign?
Sun Libra, Scorpio ascendant, Gemini moon. I could send you a picture. Let me see.
Well, we don't need to get that personal. It's okay.
Yeah, no worries.
It's okay. But so all three of us have Scorpio rising.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I notice I'm attracted to a lot of Scorpio energy in the world. Like it just connects with me all the time. A lot of people I meet are Scorpio backed somehow.
So my experience with Scorpio rising and Scorpio rising people is that 95% of the time, deep childhood trauma.
Yep.
Real deep childhood trauma.
Oh yeah.
Todd, what about you?
Yeah, I guess I don't think trauma is a great word for it. I mean, my parents divorced when I was really young, and that was kind of difficult. But
well, that's that. There you go. That could be traumatic.
3 years old for me. Yep. They divorced.
Yeah. And Gen X, the biggest divorce generation. Right. Because you guys were.
Oh yeah.
Great. You guys were out of the chute from baby boomers, right? Who were like, we're going to go our separate way. The divorce laws got really loose.
Yeah.
In the 70s and the 80s, right?
Yeah. They have.
So you've got some kids. How old are your kids, Barry?
So we've got my boy's turning 19 this September. He's born 9/20 right there on the autumn equinox. And then we've got my daughter. She's 2/19/2010. So kind of that late Pisces or that late Aquarius, early Pisces cusp area on her sun. And then so she's 13. It's hell with her.
So So you got a Gen Z and a Gen A in your family.
When did Gen A start? Was that
2009?
2009. Okay.
That's when Pluto goes into Capricorn.
Okay, that's right. Because that's how we define it, is on when Pluto shifts the sign. It's our generations.
That's how I do it.
And it fluxes, right, from 13 years to 11 years.
Like Pluto does not have a regular orbit.
Right, depending on its retro cycle.
Sometimes those Pluto, like for instance, we go to Gen Z, starts off in 1996, and by 2008 it's done. Right, so it's a pretty short,
pretty quick
cycle.
One. Yeah, a little burst of energy coming in.
Yeah, and then Pluto in Capricorn has gone on for fucking ever.
Yeah, right. We're going back into it now. That it's retro. Yeah.
So let's talk about your Gen A daughter. Because
Uh-huh.
they're very interesting. They're like really old souls, these kids.
There is. I'll tell you what, let me just give you a quick rundown on what I'm going through with her. So we have suicidal cutting, 6 inpatient stays at institutions for mental health. And this is all since February 1st this year. And it has been just insane on things that we're experiencing with that. It's a little better right now, but it's just that Saturn Pisces hitting her sun. She's
a Pisces sun.
Yeah. So I mean, it's heavy. Like
Pisces is a hard sign, man. Pisces is a hard sign.
It is. They're very spongy, so they're going to take on, burdens of others, and they're going to, identify. I've seen so much of this. So each time to a different inpatient stay, she would adopt new behaviors that she'd sponge in, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's all 12. And those places are 12th house, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
total 12th
that's
house.
kind of like her domain.
Yep.
And, it's like, oh,
yep.
I'm home.
I have a
right?
Saturn Pluto 12th house in my natal chart. So my restrictions, I see Pluto as the moral body. So I look at Pluto as the result of all your choices that you've ever made, essentially. And there's this aura that gets colored, and Chiron is the cherry on top, right? That's your pain. That's your I don't know, that's the soft spot in your heart that just keeps getting wounded and wounded and wounded, and it just keeps getting attacked. And so we've got that moral body right there, and I have that on my ascendant. So I have moral fundamentals that I identify with as my personal ego. Like I see my ego as a moral body. Like I identify with myself as a thing of duty and a thing of morality, with Saturn and Pluto right there. And many other things too.
That would be really, I think that'd be a heavy mission, because my sense is, yeah, I mean, my sense.
Listen to my Chiron. My Chiron is 7th house on Al Ghul.
Now, when you say Chiron, are you saying Chiron or Chiron?
Oh, sorry, Chiron. My Chiron is in the 7th house on the fixed star Al Ghul.
So 27, right? 26, 27 Taurus.
Yeah.
So you're part of. So a lot of Gen X has Chiron and Taurus.
Yep.
And they have a very hard time being in an Earth body.
Oh yeah,
it's very challenging.
And what we're going through right now is that Uranus 7-year tear through Taurus. We're about to be coming up on Uranus going through into the Al Ghul position.
If you extrapolate out and look at like the divorce situation in Gen X, and you have Chiron in Taurus, like your security is ripped away from you.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's part of it. So,
which is why I'm so driven by having, making sure like that root chakra, like my base survivals, like, I have a Jupiter conjunct Uranus 2nd house Sag, so that's money, right? So I mean, I'm over 6 figures with my work, but at the same time, I'm generous with it. I feed the deer and little critters, just a lot. Good. So I mean, plus many others. So it's like I don't know. It's everything's a double-edged sword with these things.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry to hear about your daughter.
Yeah, it's growth. I mean, there's Saturn learning through lessons. So I mean, and I think this is that. The childhood trauma, it can make you a very strong person, going through very mature things at a young age here. It's kind of like a catalyst that I think we put in our experience. Hey, if you want to be doing this by this point, you're going to need a few of these marbles in your jar over here to,
Yeah. So I totally had that in my.
And it's been, I feel like and that's just my big things going on in my house. I'm having, tons of stuff go on, relationship stuff. I mean, I've got a big basket of my own person, and this has all been the last 2-3 years during this time. And everywhere I look at other households, other people, even if they're not with somebody, they're dealing with like a medical thing, a career thing. I mean, we're all but there's beauty in it, right? I mean, sometimes it takes a lot of pressure to make a diamond, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's the friction. It's the friction, the friction of the square, and the pressure of the opposition and the conjunction.
Right.
So Todd, you don't have any children. Do you want to have children? Is that something you're interested in, or are you one of these millennials, which is like, no, I'm cool. I got a dog.
Right.
I would love to, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so if there's any other millennial women out there that are looking to have a
right, we got Todd available.
We could put Todd's contact info.
Art teacher.
I just think it'd be fun, yeah. Kind of like Barry was talking about, like, it's I mean, a true form of art, to bring up a child, I feel like. So yeah, It's hard, obviously, these days. You know, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So
I feel like I got in just under the wire with my. I was a late father, so my son was born when I was 44, and I was going through the Saturn opposition.
Yeah,
and it worked. I mean, the timing was good because, I mean, I would have been a good father if I had gotten married young, and but after a certain point, I went into a very kind of self-indulgent period. And I'm a projector in human design, so I needed to figure some shit out. And it took me a while to get there, but once I got there, I utterly enjoyed the experience of being a father, and it changed my life dramatically. And I don't know where you are, Barry. I know that you've got a lot of stuff on your plate, but for me, with my son, who's kind of close in age, my son was born in 2004.
Yeah, mine's 04.
Yeah. So I feel like I kind of got in under the wire a little bit with him.
Right.
Like it felt like it was kind of the last outpost of sort of, normal
analog creatures
and analog parenting, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you feel that with your son as well?
It was, so that spot right there, it was tough for where I was at in my life. I was 19 myself, in the military, and I was getting deployed to Iraq. I think I was going on my second trip right there. So, and at that time, when I had gotten back, I remember I was in a self-indulgence phase. World of Warcraft just came out. I pretty much chose computer games over a relationship and being a parent at that point in my life. And that marriage broke up. I became essentially an every other weekend type dad for a while, and then I split more to a 50-50 situation. But later in life, when I had my daughter Carrie, I was 27, and I highly recommend that for my soul. That was the point.
You're going
for
through
me.
your Saturn return, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I was coming right up on it. I was in school for philosophy over at Boise State University. I ended up finishing. So I graduated on 2012, December 21st at 11/11, right when the world was supposed to end.
Nice.
I was like, hey, at least I snuck it in there, right? But yeah, it's, the children's stuff is just, it's huge, man. It really takes my whole reality, everything I thought I'm going to do, all the plans I make, they're all subject to being changed because of children. Yeah. So it's a very, sometimes I want to be selfish and I can't. You just don't have a choice. Literally, I feel like that just with the own way I look at parenting. Like, I don't hear my creator bitching to me every time something's going wrong up there. It's that would be horrible. Like, oh, you can't handle that. You're probably not my God. My God could handle anything, and not bitch about it.
Yeah.
So when I get mad about stuff and stuff irritates me here, it's just like, man, you got so much work to do. You're letting Earth stuff get to you. How are you going to hold up? How are you going to guide Arcturus and his sons? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. You bring up a really good point. I'll throw this back out to both you guys. I was talking with a client the other day, and I talked about how people put God in a box.
Right.
And really from a kind of a traditional Christian sort of standpoint, which I don't really have a problem with. Like, I don't hate Christians at all.
Right.
And a lot of the precepts of Christianity are really beautiful. But this is just my experience with sort of the what we would call like a biblical worldview or a biblical mindset, is that in a lot of ways, yes, it can be metaphoric and allegorical, but I never get this, and maybe I'm just not, living and breathing with the Holy Spirit, but I never get this sense that when I kind of peek behind the curtain of that world, that there is this understanding of the awe of creation, right? Like from the microscopic level, and the paramecium and the things in the soil that degrade it, all the way up to the fractal points of light from stars, right? And all the, intricate autonomous systems in our body and everything in between. Like, I never get a sense that world is like talked about and approached and experienced when you put God in a box. What are your guys' thoughts around that?
Yeah, Todd, do you want to start there?
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think that you're creating it as you go. Like you're creating your own, God in a way, like your own idea. I mean, I feel like you can really limit everything. Your whole creation can be limited by your box that you put it in.
Exactly.
Like,
I think a lot of the so I teach at a Montessori school, but we also have Catholic affiliation, and so I'm forced to go to mass, Catholic mass, which I'm not a huge fan of. I don't believe that God is sitting around going, "Oh, you're a bunch of sinners and you need to pray to me." In fact, when I look at a lot of the religions, the big religions of the world, and their God requires them to do all this stuff, and I have a hard time with that, because there are people in the Amazon that, while they do have rituals and so forth, like they're not they don't look down on other human beings as, oh, well, they don't worship my God, well, they're less than
Right.
that's
Right.
less than me. To me, that's extremely goofy.
Eddie,
And
yeah.
we talk about Steiner a lot, and he's a big proponent of anthroposophy, and I'm a huge fan of that, because it's more about humanness and the importance of being human, and he brings a real passion to being human and not getting so lost in the sauce on God and, oh, well, how can I
Right.
appease God? And I have to take like some classes in regards to Catholicism as well. And the one I was just blown away by, because, if you do any basic research about the Catholics, I mean, it was like, how can you be more holy for your students and so forth? And I'm like, this is the
Yeah.
Catholic Church. Like, no offense to them, but like, y'all aren't the holiest of holies here.
Yeah, you still get to drink and smoke and right, do
Well,
all this
yeah,
stuff.
and it's in each you look at the past, and they had multiple gods, and they had these gods sort of are like, I don't want to say like trading cards, but like they have like different aspects and different things, and it's like a hierarchy too, which Steiner goes into about the hierarchy and so forth and so on. And I agree, like most people put God in a box because it's just convenient, right? And like
Right.
a lot of church and religion these days is just convenience. But like when they're passing out the basket to get their donations, and they don't pay taxes, which would help our society, and they have these huge buildings that the homeless can't even go and sleep in, it's like, come on, like what part of this is genuinely spiritual?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a pretty deep subject.
And yet here's the other part of this too. And yet I also understand the orthodoxy. Right. Like you get into a universe where anything goes. And I think we're seeing some of the bad fruit that's grown out of that lack of how would I describe this? Structure and respect. Right? Respect or reverence for creation and divine law.
Yeah,
right?
fostering stewardness. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So and so now we've got, Lizzo and her suit with flying bananas and dildos, right?
Right.
Yeah. So let's do a couple things here. I wanted to get your guys' take on, because I noticed you guys talk about Tartaria. Am I right about this?
We mostly shift to Atlantis and
right.
Star Forts.
Yeah.
Let's dip into this a little bit, because I'm very fascinated by the subject, and
awesome.
I was absolutely kind of obsessed by it a couple of years ago, and I still find it to be highly interesting.
It is,
yeah. And this whole historical kind of narrative that seems to have been obscured, erased, deleted, right? So what is your take on like and I really feel like 1849 and 1850 is a really specific year, right? And astrologically, Barry, I think you would appreciate this. And I don't know if you've looked into this, but post 1849, 1850, both Uranus and Pluto move simultaneously pretty much into Taurus from Aries.
Yeah.
Right.
Changing Earth. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
From fire to earth, right? Like the cooling earth.
And the physical boss, Pluto right there, the dimension holder, the structure, the baseline. I mean, the king of everything carnal. I mean,
so,
with Urine, that's big.
It's a big shift. So what are your guys' thoughts on what happened and what the hell was going on before they pulled the wool over our eyes?
So I think there was I'm going to steal this start on this, Todd, here.
Go for it.
So I think before 49 and 50, I think there was really big things happening in 1811-12 with the New Madrid stuff that is going to be a big precursor to all this, which was actually, so I see our system in America as like the Great Lakes system as a giant caldera, like a mud volcano. And this is why we would get the awesome bread baskets below, or all the, people knew mud or whatever you would have just spills out and it covers everything. Our entire system has this evidence all around the world. We have, the buried windows. If you're building a building, why would you put a window, facing dirt? I mean, that just wouldn't make a whole ton of sense, but something getting half buried, maybe that's pretty easy to perceive. Okay, what buried it, is the next question. So there's these cycles that happen here that we know little of. And the whole entire Atlantic for a long time recently was supposed to be, you couldn't navigate it because it was like mud shoals. Like it just wasn't, it was just mixed soup, like plasma. It was not something you could float a boat on. There was areas of stillness. There was areas of, rapid water. It was just something that was in constant change and flux. And to know exactly what event happened, it's very difficult. It could have been a number of events, but somebody definitely capitalized on that event. That could have been the event that took out, whatever the Tartaria people is, but Tartaria could be a placeholder for like Americans, or, and that would be North America, South America, Central America.
Right.
We lost everything there. I mean, Pan America, all of these old world terms, all of our connection, everything was zodiacal. All the World Fair events that they had were beautiful masterpieces that they supposedly constructed in a few weeks' time, and it's just no way. None of the story checks out. And then they destroy it all after through just, disaster after disaster, fires.
Fire everywhere, right?
Right.
Not just any fire. Like when you look, I know you guys have seen that footage going down Market Street in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And by the time they get to the end, first of all, the year looks very different, right? It's like, where's that one?
It's an eye.
I'm not seeing that one there. And then they turn it around and they go forward, and then you see Market Street. And it's like a fucking bomb was dropped there.
Yeah, there's something bigger going on. Like this is a giant computer board or something. These are centers of, electric activity right here. I mean, these are all of the city centers are all sitting on geometry lines. I mean, this is 100%. There was a complete circuit set up here. The buildings, everything was interactable. The people, the flesh that went in them. I mean, these are all, food for the circuit. This is all contributing to something that we were participating in on a grand scale. And that all got stripped. All of that knowledge got absolutely just washed. And
it was like a Men in Black moment, right?
It was definitely a Men in Black moment. And, then it's like in all the stories are tying off this, right? You get into the orphan trains. They got to repopulate these areas. I mean, you got little kids running around doing the jobs of everything. I mean, it's weird. I mean,
real weird.
You get into the, they even they were growing, we get into the
Cabbage Patch Kids
stuff. The cabbage, all of that is just, I mean, it's, the scary thing is, the truth is always much scarier than what they tell us, you know. And that's, you can't trust anything anymore either. Any picture you've ever seen could be subject to an AI generator of past tech. You know, that whole database could have been created. This whole thing could have been just as we go, just feeding the ingredients at the right time to just keep this narrative going, to hide this other narrative. I mean, this place feels weird, like a garden that is subject to.
And he's not even doing drugs.
I know. I can't. That's why I can't. Like, I'm already high enough in this place. But,
right.
But yeah, this place was buried. You know, and I think there's 4 destructions. You got fire, water, air, and then you've got earth. Right. So I think we're looking at a combination of destructions. Yeah. The things on the hilltops are subject to damage by fire. The things in the valleys are, you know, that's, if you look at the goat Capricorn up on the mountain right across, is the deep sheep valleys with Cancer. Yep. You know, where everything floods and you got cardinal water. Mm-hmm. And then on that left and right, you've got the Aries Libra axis, you've got the cardinal fire, you've got the cardinal air. Air and fire are going to be similar type catastrophic events. A air event, air to me is electricity. You know, it's the breath of everything, is the static charge and everything.
And you're also dealing with, like, you know, 190 mile per hour winds.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. That'll suck the oxygen right out of places, you know. Right. Then we're getting into Medusa events, things turning to stone. Right. I mean, then you're getting into the meltology of all those, you know, those intense fires. You know, that was getting struck by some kind of cosmic fire. How do you melt brick buildings? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And then you've got the whole, like, the fascies thing, and tech that was probably used to finish off the job.
Steampunk stuff. I mean, they were heating these entire systems with condensation and steam. Yeah. I mean, they were heating whole city blocks with just a simpler boiler room in one of the buildings. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, what are we doing? You know, why aren't we on that system?
Well, yeah, I think we know. I think we know why.
There's no money in that.
Exactly.
Same with the health system. Same with the education system. The whole thing. Yeah. You know, there's a line in the Bible somewhere that says you'll replace an eye with an eye, an ear with an ear. You know, they're going in and they're putting a difference on all these parts right here. They've taken our astrology, our astronomy. I'm sure that's all jacked up too, you know, so that, which makes me arrive where I'm at nowadays, is just interpretation for base symbols. You know, if you can have a good solid grasp on simple thing like a positive sign, a negative sign, the letter A, you know, the glyph for Capricorn. If you can just gain yourself a simple respect and appreciation for each piece of information, then you only have to answer the question of time. You know, you've got the space down, you know what the space is, but how do you know what time you're in, you know? Right. Yep. That's a tough question. That's part of this narrative, is that they've taken out 1,000 years, added 1,000 years. You got the whole dating system from the eye system to the, you know, the 1100, 1200. Yeah,
so, even going from like BC 80 to what is it? CE, right? They even changed
the Common Era. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, we've got some serious stuff going on in terms of calendar manipulation, and it's going to put us back to, you know, a lot of people don't believe we have a real moon in the sky, right? We've got this fake holographic satellite just being projected. It's really, really, really hard to tell anymore what we even are, what we're in, what we're part of.
Well, there seems to have been something like there's literature that exists where there is no description of the moon.
Right, and different faces I've read too, like different aspecting of the moon, which is supposed to be a map for our realm.
I ran across something from, I think it was Africa. It might have been oral tradition stuff that have been written down, and they don't talk about the moon. They'll talk about other things, but they don't mention the moon, right? So this goes back into a period. This is just my own personal thought, but other people might ascribe to this as well. That at one point in time, Saturn was the sun of this world.
Yep.
And it gave off a very different glow. It was more purple, and the earth was much more like a tropical garden. with Saturn, right?
That's right.
And then what happens? Somebody brought the moon in,
Yeah.
right, and upsets the tides, the atmospheric, and the oxygen.
We get the seasons.
Well,
Right.
the moon
We
and
didn't have the
sun
seasons
separate.
before, right? And we
It
had
was bananas all the way up to the North Pole.
right, and immense vegetation, massive trees, right? Like, and who knows how big the people were? The people might have been quite large as well.
Right.
And then we have this replacement system, and now this new sun kicks in. Saturn cordoned off by the ring, right? And then the moon comes in. It becomes the watchtower of the planet. And we have seasons and tides, and everything changes.
Yeah.
And then I think you could correlate that to the Bible, right? You have people like Methuselah and all these characters who were living incredibly long times, and then all of a sudden,
the Old Testament versus the New Testament with Christ the Son being born, right?
Part of it, yeah. I think that's part. It's part of the story. I don't think the New Testament's the whole story, but somebody
like
grabbed it.
Chapter.
Yeah. So I think that this is. To me, this is the really interesting, like this kind of.
It's like their epochs,
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that I'm fascinated, and I'd love to get both your takes, is the Revolutionary War period and the Founding Fathers.
Yeah,
and I'm friends. I'm pretty good friends with John Levi, and John Levi and I talk about stuff like this from time to time. And one of the things that he brings up is the idea that the Founding Fathers are part of a very different time, like not part of a 1776 time.
Right.
And I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on these characters, these documents, and in this period.
I think it's our new Zodiac. So I think this is our new Bible story right here. Jefferson, Washington, all these characters are all going to be a display of their new Jerusalem, their attempt at, because that's what they're all fighting over all the time, is who's going to get to put a label on all these stars above us. So the only story there was, ever written. You got the Egyptian times. We got all sections of the sky zoned off to a god. We got all the attributes of, godly aspects on earth named, and then we get into we got the Saint Michaels, and we get the angels. You've got the Romans, the Greeks, all the different god and mythologies. These are all telling the same story. So this is why I think that the Washington, Jefferson, Jackson, all of these figures right here are all placeholders for some kind of, cosmological idea, some kind of zodiacal influence. And this period of time is outside of time, essentially. It could not have actually physically existed or been. This could be like an idea, like a platonic placeholder for something that they're trying to build. I look at it, if you look at the old coinage, it really changes in the early 1800s. You can't even find a piece of silver like pre-1849. It's like something was buried. That whole world was gone. Everything that they have found pre that date is subject to being a fake or placed there. So it's pretty something huge happened right there.
I would agree.
And we're not far out from that, it seems. We're not very far at all. I don't know how much time has been taken away or added or what's been done, but that whole Bill of Rights system, the Declaration of Independence, these are all cosmic rights laws that are supposed to have been, living the dream, essentially. And I don't know. It's all twisted now. We've look at free speech. That went out the window. I'll never forget this event. The owner of the LA Clippers made a comment in private about Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
At that moment in time, and then he had to give up his business. He had to change all these physical earth things because of a comment he made in private. I knew at that moment in time free speech was done, at least on a public level. This person couldn't even talk in private and let it get leaked,
Well, okay, so
that was huge.
So here's my theory about that.
Okay.
You probably know this anyway, but that was a setup and for him to be forced to sell the team. And they were trying to get Magic Johnson to be the owner of the Clippers.
Right. Yep.
And for whatever reason, it was kind of. Here's what I think happened.
Went to the wife for a little bit, right?
Well, a little bit, but Donald Sterling
that's a shame.
Spilled the beans, and I think David Stern was the commissioner at the time. And David Stern, interesting character, right? He's an interesting character. He presides over the globalism and the growth of basketball.
Right, very stern.
He has to manage Michael Jordan and Michael Jordan's excessive gambling and relationship with the underworld. He has to manage all that. He has to manage these refs who are throwing games.
Yeah.
He also, I believe, is managing and engineering the NBA to look a certain way. Right? Like I firmly believe that he was the guy that made sure that Patrick Ewing got to the New York Knicks. Right? Like there was the whole thing with the envelope and the Golden State Warriors, and they had the worst record, and Ewing wanted to become a Knick and should have been a Warriors pick. Right.
So
there's and he also nixed the trade of Chris Paul to the Lakers.
Right.
So David Stern was very involved, hands-on, for better or worse.
Right.
I believe that he basically said, Magic is not getting this team. Sorry. Right? Like your little stunt is going to force Donald Sterling out. But we're going to sell this team to Steve Ballmer, who basically was Steve Ballmer was the salesman at Microsoft. That's what his job was. Like he made his money selling Microsoft programming and related computers.
Right.
He wasn't Paul Allen, who was really the brains behind Microsoft. He wasn't Bill Gates, who was the pirate behind Microsoft. He was the used car salesman at Microsoft.
Right.
So he gets the team. And that, but to your point, it crossed a line and a barrier that we really haven't recovered from. And now they just use it, right?
Yeah.
They want an NBA owner out. Look at Robert Sarver. Leak the internal emails, you're fucked. Daniel Snyder, leak the internal emails, you're fucked. And they'll just put somebody else in. And it's been going on for a while now. Same thing happened to Jerry Richardson in Carolina.
Yeah.
He got
Hunter Biden.
Yeah. Well, Jerry Richardson got Me Too. He had to sell the team.
Yeah.
And then you have David Tepper, hedge fund guy, buying the team.
Private conversations. Yeah.
So I want to lay this out here. This is based on your cosmology thing with the presidents. And I always thought this is kind of interesting, right? Like we'd all know Washington is the father of the country.
Right.
And he's a Pisces.
Right.
He's a Pisces.
Which is where the procession puts, that would be in the position of Aries, essentially, in the first house.
The first president that after Washington that really gets our attention is not the second president.
Right.
The second president is John Adams.
Yeah.
John Adams is a Scorpio. Right. Who's the next president that really gets our attention? It's Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
And he's an Aries, right?
Right.
So
Ego,
you've got this little Scorpio sandwich. Scorpio being Mars being the esoteric ruler of Scorpio in the beginning, right? Yeah. But really, to your point, like the procession to go from Pisces, and then you have Scorpio, and then Aries, right? And and what's interesting about John Adams is that he actually dies in 1826 on July 4th.
Wow.
Right. So putting really kind of a bookend to his. Apparently, John Adams was brilliant. If you read any accounts about Adams that are relevant and so-called real,
and you know what? Thomas Jefferson was a 0-year president, 1800.
There you go. Right. Big change. Huge change for Thomas Jefferson. So let's bring Todd back in. Todd, what are your thoughts on some of the The Tartaria. We call it Tartaria because we don't have any other word for it.
Right.
Really.
Yeah.
But Todd, what are your thoughts on some of this narrative here?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I learned about Tartaria quite a while ago. I at this point in the mud flood, I mean, just looking at the pictures, you can see have huge buildings halfway underground. Obviously should raise questions. But I ended up kind of seeing it just as a stepping stone to Atlantis, and reading a lot of Rudolf Steiner. He recommended some books, and he does talk about Atlantis and Lemuria. And I personally find it to be the more valuable than Tartaria. Tartaria is so loose at this point. It's like, what is it? I mean, the maps could be fake. It wouldn't be hard, really. Whereas Atlantis, the one book you can get, it's W. Scott Elliott. He has maps too that talk about Atlantis, and they talk about the cataclysms. And basically, it would have been like what the Atlantic Ocean used to pretty much be land. And it's a combination of things between black magic. The culture was very heavy in black magic. It's also about how the world worked. So, and we're talking, they say 1 million years ago. I have a hard time with the time. I don't understand that. Just as
right.
Especially with psychedelics, it's like, what is time anyway? But
right. Yeah.
So, but the atmosphere would have been different, right? And he brings it he helps you develop a picture of like humans and the earth and so forth. We are like literally we're the reason the earth is here.
Yeah,
like we make this. It's us. Like it's why it's important. And it's also like, so he talks about, we go from Lemuria, which would have been Asia.
He being Steiner. This is what you're referring to, right?
Well, Steiner and Scott Elliott, so he recommended that book, so I went and tracked it down and got it, read it. They talk like you were talking about the bananas, like bananas. We shouldn't have bananas in America. Like they apparently can't be traveled. But when you understand Atlantis, which was, very advanced technology, very, they had levitating vehicles. And then there's other books you can read that are really good. Smoking God. Vril, Power of the Coming Race. I'm reading Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Adventure. And all these point to a concept of hollow earth. There's also a couple channels that talk about crater earth, which I think is just the same thing. And they all point to more land, which I think if you're a government, right, and you can't go to Antarctica or you can't travel the seas without either, being stopped by somebody with power, it just says there's more land. And it just, at that point, it's like, cool, let's go there. Let's figure this stuff out.
Yeah, let's go. Let's board the yacht and let's go.
Exactly. And when we talk about like socio systems, I guess, we allow North Korea to exist. So to me, there's no reason that our crater here, whatever it is, it's a North Korea system. And there's more than likely more humans. And when you read Smoky God, they encounter giants, essentially, 12-foot beings. And these beings have gold is nothing to them. And then they talk about Atlantis in Scott Elliott's work. They were expert alchemists, metallurgists. Like they just made gold. Oh, we need some gold. We need some. So we'll just go.
Yeah, right. What a concept, huh?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And the other thing to sort of bring it to today, right? They were very well versed in black magic or whatever you want to call it. I know I was on Longo's show, Narco Longo's show, the other day. He called it blood magic, which is a great term too. The idea though is like, if we're talking 1 million years ago, they fully understood how to take advantage of you mentally, physically, and so forth. There's no reason today they don't do that. And I've been reading a book, it's called The Illuminati Formula, and they talk about systems of mind control, and it goes quite deep. And it's just, you think about the basic school system and stuff, it's like, man, you're fed so much junk that when you hear like anything that's contrary or like anything that's real, you're like, well, I don't know. And I mean, I remember when I was very young and we learned about the pyramids, and you're just like, oh, so slaves built these pyramids, and then you learn that they're car-sized bricks, and you can't put a credit card between them. I mean, like, I'm naturally curious, so I'm like,
Right.
really? Like, really? So it's just, I don't know. It's I think Atlantis is far more important than Tartaria. In I really recommend reading the book. We did an episode where I posted the maps and we talk about it. It's really cool to look at the maps. They don't include like a, you know, like the UN circular map or anything, but you know, I think it's really just hiding that there's more land, and I don't know. That's the best I can kind of summarize it.
No, that's good. No, you brought some great pieces
No.
to the overall picture. Have you guys been to the Parthenon in Nashville by any chance?
I
Yeah.
have. Yeah. It's
Did
pretty
that
amazing.
did that blow your mind or what?
Yeah, that's amazing on the sculpture work on that. I mean, yeah,
But
and it's got the
even
Zodiac
even
above
the
it.
size of it, right? The size of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like the stairs. The stairs are like really, they're not normal stairs. They're like
No.
bigger.
The
And then you
doors
get
are huge.
the doors are huge. Like why build such a big fucking door?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
16 feet high. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible.
You know, so that's when I was really like dosing hard on a lot of the, you know, whatever mud flood stuff I could get. And that time I was watching just a ton of John stuff.
Yeah.
And
all
we
the
were,
doors and windows. I mean, and people can see it in any area they live in. They can just
Yeah.
go to the local red brick city and go walk around. You know, you can't go in any of the basements. You know,
Yeah.
they won't let you down there.
Yeah.
The windows are all narrow and tall, like really
Yeah.
tall. The doors are all really tall. The ceilings are huge. I mean,
Yep.
the fireplaces are for radium. You know,
Right.
not fire.
Exactly. No
Lack of
bathrooms.
bathrooms.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. And then processing everything in a very different kind of way. You know, have you been to the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco by any chance?
I haven't been to that one.
No.
Have you, Todd?
Nope.
Oh.
So I used to live in the Bay Area, and I would frequently go to the Palace of Fine Arts, like all the time. I was like a moth to a flame.
Nice.
And part of it had to do with the architecture, and part of it had to do with the feeling. There was something about the place that I was just drawn to, all you know, and I would spend time there and hang out. They've got a pond there, and they have geese and shit.
Nice.
And you know, and then of course it comes up in this exploration of this other time. And my feeling is that not only do these buildings sort of stand out, but they also have resonance.
They do, yeah.
There was something that I was drawn to with that structure.
Most of these buildings, I found out, they were built from southern Indiana limestone, which is like some of the best quality limestone in the world. And limestone is, you know, I think that's super alkaline, right? I mean, just the air going across it would irritate it and derive a charge. You know, and they got all the devices on top of these buildings, the mercury, the copper. I mean, they ripped it all down now, but we don't even know what church steeples are. I mean, none of this stuff, you know, why do I have a black cross here, a gold cross here, a silver cross over there? I mean, these are all different components.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, for sure.
The organ systems in the churches, they ripped all those out. I mean, the bells, you've seen the piles of just huge bells. You know what some of those bells do? Like, that would put a huge resonance in the air. I mean,
in the water.
Then there's the whole thing with the cannons too.
Yep.
And you know, maybe the cannons had a very different use than what they. And then we get into this real deep and even dark, pun not intended, rabbit hole, and that's this whole story of the Civil War.
Yeah.
Which I'm still not buying. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not buying it. Brother versus brother fight. Yeah, I don't see it either.
Something else went down there. Yeah. Well, we're kind of coming to the end of the show here, and I want to make sure that people know where to find your YouTube channel, your Discord, all that. So we'll make sure that that's part of the notes. Sure. But why don't you go ahead and tell folks where they can find you and have some really cool conversations with you.
Yeah, sure. So we have a Discord. It's Delicious Divination. We're probably, you got to get a link. So find a link. You can reach out to one of us. You can check out my channel on YouTube. It's Toddcast, 1D and a 0 instead of an O. That's where we're putting Delicious Divination. I have some other stuff. I want to do more content. It's just a time thing. So
Yeah.
I want to do a reading of Scott Elliott's book so people can listen to it. I've tried to do that sometime, I think. But yeah, otherwise, go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much Discord, Barry Sine Waves. I've been kind of distant on there, but I'm going to be getting back on. The Delicious Divination show is usually where you'll find me. I have a Facebook account I use, Raw Hand of God. It's spelled RAHANDOVEGAWD. So I interact on there quite a bit. Just, random lines of thought pretty much all day there. But yeah, feel free to, hit me up. I'd love to talk anything, really. I appreciate the opportunity, Robert.
Yeah, no worries, man. So we'll have you guys back on. Maybe as we get closer to the eclipse, it might be fun to talk about that.
Oh yeah, that's right near us too. Yeah.
And Todd, maybe next time I can get some JPEGs of your art and we can throw them up here and take a look at them and discuss them. How's that sound?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, we on our show sometimes we'll pull up some like old whatever like medieval art and talk about it too. It's super fun. We go deep on that sometimes.
Have you guys found William Henry at all? Do you know William Henry?
William Henry.
I don't know.
Check out William Henry stuff.
I think I've read some stuff from
William Henry has been looking at all this art for a long time and really goes into it deeply, the symbolism and all kinds of backstory. It's all
from that same era. All that art is sacred.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So, well, listen, this has been great. You've more than ably filled in this slot today, and I look forward to having you back. And we'll try to get you on around the eclipse, and I think we'll have a good discussion about the eclipse. And in the meantime, your new friends, welcome to the family, and you guys take care of yourselves. Okay.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks everybody for listening, and absolutely, we'll be back. Todd, you take care. You too, Robert.
You too, bro.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do this. We're just gonna. There you go. There we go. All right. That brings us to the end of the show. I want to thank JR Jeff Rosen for last minute bringing Barry and Todd into the show, and they were great guests. And we'll bring them back on, and I'll be back on Sunday night with Sunday Night Astro Live. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but usually sometime between now and then, something goes off in my brain. It's like, oh yeah, okay, that's what we're talking about. We'll jump into it. So join us back here, 6 p.m. this Sunday night. If you're interested in a personal reading or a session with me, you can do that through my website. I'll leave a link here in the show comments. Tartaria, you're the best. And of course, mods, thanks for everything that you do and keeping everything in working order. Really appreciate that. And I'm very thankful and grateful. In the meantime, stay cool out there and use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to step on what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Take good care. And as always, bye for now.